And if you are interested in receiving a copy of the recording and the PowerPoint after today's session, just feel free to shoot me an email and let me know. It does usually take a couple days for our team to be able to transcribe the recording into a YouTube format. So just know we probably won't have the recording available for a couple days, but don't hesitate to reach out if interested in receiving that. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. Our goal will be to get you out of here a little bit early today, knowing that it's getting to be near towards the end of the day. Very excited to see some friendly faces and some familiar names, and then a lot of new folks as well. So thank you again. I'll just ask if you're jumping on to please make sure you're muted if you possibly can. And we are going to go ahead and get started. So just looking at our agenda for today, we're going to go over some brief introductions of our United Way team, have a chance for folks to just connect briefly in the chat. And we'll go from there. So we'll go over some challenges and goals to expect for this upcoming investment cycle, as well as just some updates for those who have participated in one of our review funds before. We'll talk a little bit more about meetings and the timeline to expect. We'll go over a very brief demo of our grant management system, WiseHive, and talk about scoring and our next steps. So that's kind of going to be our goal for the day. If you have questions or if anything comes up, please don't hesitate to just pop a question into the chat, or feel free to ask any questions at the end as well. So starting off with just some introductions, as myself and the team are introducing ourselves, would love for some of you to just put your information on the chat. I think it's fun for folks to see who else is on the call, because we're all coming from different backgrounds and organizations, and some of us are new to the process. Others have participated in different investment cycles. So would love to kind of see who we have on the call via the chat. So as we're doing that, I am Meg Blue. I'm our Vice President of Community Investments here at United Way of the Midlands. So I get to oversee our various investment processes, and work very closely with not only our volunteers, but our agencies as well who receive our funding and are our partners. And then I will let Rosalind introduce herself as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rosalind Garrett. I'm one of the community investment managers, and I handle our healthy communities and community resiliency portfolios. I've been here for almost a year in March. So this will be my first time actually going through the SIF process from beginning to end. So just excited to get to work with you all.
Awesome, thank you. And then we do have a new member of our team who is actually going to be joining us on Monday, Chelsea. She is coming from her own background in the nonprofit sector, as well as some experience in federal grant management. So we're excited to have her on board. She will be Rosalind's counterpart in overseeing that financial security and youth opportunity portfolio. So as we jump in, just wanted to thank all of you. You should have all gotten an email this morning for how to get set up in our system if you have not already, and then our reviewer survey. Appreciate you dealing with some of our technical difficulties with us. Hopefully everybody is in and got that survey complete. Just part of the fun of the process. So as we run every investment cycle, we really look closely at the community landscape and how we as United Way and as volunteers and donors are responding to the challenges of our community. And each year we are looking at a bit of a different landscape. So right now with our current investment process, we're really looking at challenges for our community when it comes to food security, and the rising costs and strains in the supply chain. We're also looking at just growing numbers of individuals and families struggling as it relates to housing stability. We're seeing about 50 families a month entering the homeless system for the first time right now. And our community is about 80,000 affordable and safe housing units short for families and individuals. So there's a real strain when it comes to housing in the Omaha metro area. Our service providers, those nonprofit partners, are facing limited resources while that need is growing, as we spoke about just with food and housing. There's policy uncertainty everywhere, and just kind of not knowing, what will happen when it comes to funding. So it just makes collaboration and advocacy a bit more difficult for some of this essential programming. And then just overall, nonprofits are being asked to do more with less to meet urgent needs. So we're seeing a pretty significant strain on the system overall. So every year, United Way comes up with goals for us to align with over our fiscal year. So you can see kind of our four main funding areas. So when we look at our nonprofits, we look at nonprofits that kind of fall in these spaces. And we really want to make sure that in partnering, we're partnering with folks who are going to be able to help us deliver on these measures for the community. So as you see here for our 24-25 fiscal year, we run July 1st through June 30th. These are our goals that we are intending to hit. We are on track, just moving into being halfway through that fiscal. But when reviewing applications, we want to assess what programs are saying in terms of how they are going to be delivering, because we want to make sure that we're able to deliver in some of these metrics with making sure that individuals and families are being fed, that we're providing that direct assistance for those who may need it, as well as other supportive services. So looking at the Community Impact Fund overall, for those of you who are new to the Impact Fund process, we will not know how much we will be able to distribute in terms of dollars until closer to the end of the process. So we really like folks to be able to look at the programs you're reviewing with a clean slate, and really assessing based on merit, as opposed to looking at the dollars and cents right away. So when we get a little closer down the line, we will be able to share just exactly how much we have available. That's because United Way primarily runs on campaigns. So we're counting those up, and seeing exactly how much we're going to be able to distribute. So that is primarily where the funds for the Community Impact Fund that we're talking about today come from. So our four main areas: healthy communities, youth opportunity, financial security, and community resiliency. A little breakdown of those, and you'll be provided with materials along the way. But when we're looking at healthy communities, we're looking at those programs who are providing food access or shelter or physical behavioral health services, really meeting those basic needs. Some of you who may have participated in the process before would know this category kind of under that basic needs. So our youth opportunity is really focused on that youth advancement. So out of school time or after school programs, early learning and childcare for our younger populations, college and career preparation. So again, those organizations who are providing those services. When we look at financial security, looking at education and training for the workforce, entrepreneurship opportunities, and then that financial literacy and asset development for individuals and families. And then community resiliency. So really responding to those urgent needs in the community, and being kind of that wraparound force. So those are our main areas. We want to make sure that programs that we are reviewing can fit into those buckets for us. All organizations need to be serving the Omaha and Council Bluffs Metro. So they are asked in their application to provide us with a percentage in terms of the population that they're serving and geographically where they're located. We want to ensure that we've got a diverse portfolio, so we don't want to be concentrated all in one area. And we want to embed a little bit of risk in there. And when we talk about risk, you think about those organizations in our community, like a Heartland Family Service or a Lutheran Family Service, who have proven outcomes and have been around for a long time, which is important to the portfolio for that sustainability and the work that they're doing overall. But we want to be sure that we're also giving newer and emerging organizations a shot too. And so that might include putting on kind of our risk caps and really assessing there, do we think that this could be a good fit for United Way funding? Should we take a chance with this organization? A new bit of this process is that there is an award threshold for new applicants. So those of you who participated in the Community Impact Fund in the past, last year, all new applicants could apply for strictly $25,000 for their program. We took volunteer and team lead feedback into account for this and wanted to make sure we open this up a little bit more. So new programs to United Way funding this year could apply for $25,000 or less. Just because some newer and emerging organizations may not need that $25,000 investment at first, and we didn't want that to be limiting to some folks who might be looking for a smaller investment in kind of their startup phase. And then again, a really standard equitable application was provided for everyone. A significant amount of technical assistance was provided for programs who may be there's a difference between an organization who has a dedicated grant writer and the backup of development staff and a CEO and program directors, as opposed to an organization who has a founder and a CEO who's kind of doing it all. So we wanted to make sure that the application was just standard and equitable for all. And so we do ask in the application who is completing the forms in the application. So I think again, thinking about who might be doing the application and what their bandwidth might be when you're going about and reviewing as well. Okay, so looking at team structure, many of you did already kind of start filling out your surveys, which helps us determine where to hopefully try to place you. We try to place you on a team based on your preference. In some circumstances that may not happen, but we really try to go with your first or second area of preference. So as you can see, teams will look very similar to what we have laid out on the screen here. We do see an excess in applications for some of those teams that you see in blue, which fall into our healthy communities category and those basic needs. So you might see as we go about, we might have 2 food access teams or 2 shelter teams, just to be able to make sure that applications are manageable for you as reviewers to read as well. So each team will receive about 10 to 14 applications to review during that month time. So 10 to 14 out of that 138 that you can see on the screen that were originally submitted. So for those of you kind of jumping on today who maybe weren't able to participate in the informational session we hosted a few months ago, we start every process with letters of intent from agencies and then kind of whittle things down from there. So there's a high amount of due diligence that programs go through to get up to this application point even. And then more due diligence that is done obviously through your review and scoring and then conversations with our team. So as you can see, we had 216 letters of intent submitted originally, with just over 15 million in requests. We were able to whittle that down to 138 applications through various meetings that we held with agencies and really, again, assessing in that due diligence. So right now we're looking at about a little over 10 million in requests that we have for funding. There we go. So breaking into, I know a lot of folks are wondering, especially those who are newer to the process, just what the time commitment is and what we're looking at. So right now we're kind of going over the virtual training. Next week we will assign you to that priority area and your team. And then you will have, again, the entire month of March to review and score those applications. Once applications are reviewed and scored, we will ask that you try to attend 2 virtual meetings that we will host. The first being in the last 2 weeks of April. And that will be where you meet with everybody else who reviewed and scored the same applications as you. And you talk about the merits and have discussions about the programs, and see, the score is one piece of this. The other part is conversation. So are there programs that we think, maybe should rank a little bit higher than what they were originally scored on by the team? Are there programs that we feel like should drop off at this point that maybe would not be a good fit on funding based on what we're projecting we'll have available? So that will be kind of the basis of the first meeting. And then in the first 2 weeks of May, you'll get together with your team again virtually. And that's when you'll know that's when you'll know how much funding you'll have available to give out. And you'll be able to determine those funding amounts for the programs that are in your funding category. So at that time, you'll make those funding recommendations. Those go as a final approval to our board of directors at the beginning of June. I will say that they really try to stick with volunteer voice and choice. So, I encourage everyone to take this process very seriously, especially when we're making funding decisions, as your voice is the biggest part of this when it comes to that community-led process and really speaking for our community. And again, ensuring those donor dollars are invested wisely. So we predict overall that this process will take about 10 to 15 hours of reading and scoring. Again, that's independently on your own throughout the month of March. Both myself and Roslyn will be available during that time if you need any technical assistance or want to meet to chat about things. And then we do ask that most team leads try to get their team together just for a quick virtual introductory meeting. If that's not possible, we just ask that folks maybe get together on email and make sure everybody feels comfortable with each other. We then will have that recalibration meeting, which lasts about an hour, and then that funding meeting, which also lasts an hour. So about 15 to 20 hours of total work from that March to May time period. And again, we understand that these meetings do occur during the workday and things come up. So we understand that you might not be able to make the meeting, or, you might be planning on making it, but again, life happens. So we do ask that as long as you score and review your applications, you can still be a part of the process if something comes up and you're not able to participate in the meeting. And if there are certain notes that you want to make sure, that your voice is heard during that meeting that you can't make, you can send those to myself or to your team lead, to ensure that your opinion is heard, if you're not able to attend. So when you're looking at your programs, which we'll get into the rubric a little bit more in a couple slides, you really want to make sure that the programs you're looking at have a clear and manageable focus. So you want to be able to make sure you understand, who is this program serving, how are they doing it, and what are they measuring. If you can't gather that from the application, then it might not be a good fit to select for funding. You want to make sure that they're providing you with a good understanding of the needs of the target population. We have programs that are serving senior populations, immigrant refugee populations, young adults, individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So if a program is not clearly spelling out who their target population is, again, that may be a pause for reflection and to think about. We want to make sure that programs we're serving are serving those underserved or hard to reach low income populations, that there's a realistic strategy for measuring impact, and that requests are reasonable. So we want to look at what are the services your program is providing, what is the cost per client based on those services, really looking at those organizational and program budgets to make sure that this is a solid, realistic request. We did tell most organizations to expect to fall somewhere between $40,000 and $75,000, with the exception of those new programs who have submitted requests for less. So be thinking about that when you're looking at those application requests. And again, that compelling use of funds. So if it's not clear in the application where those funds would go and what they would be using those for, again, I think there's room to pause and think about, is this a good fit for funding? We do offer time in between when the review and scoring is done and that final funding meeting to go back to the programs with any questions. So we make sure that if there's any questions that we think might change our opinion based on that review or where the program might fall after the first discussion, we do go back to the organization with any questions you may have and provide those to you to help make those final funding decisions. So goals for this investment cycle, we want to make sure that we are supporting organizations that can maintain long-term impact with just the current funding environment being very, I think, kind of up in the air and not necessarily secure. We do want to really try to make sure that while we are embedding some risk over all the portfolio, we know we'll be able to deliver on those outcomes and then maintain. We want to try to make sure that we are investing in those programs where we're not going to be worried about doors closing or programs sunsetting or whatever that might be. We want to try to avoid duplication in programming. Omaha in the metro area is a city where there are a lot of, big hearts, which is fantastic. But because of that, there are also a lot of nonprofits. And there are quite a few that are doing similar work. So really reviewing to see if there is duplication in those funds, and make sure that we're not kind of crossing those paths. We're going to carefully assess budgets and expenditures and make sure that resources are being allocated appropriately. And then that overall program effectiveness and alignment with community need and where we're at. So all of you should have gotten this email today. It's a bit wordy, we understand, but appreciate you getting those surveys in if you have not done one before and creating your profile. So we can get your programs assigned to you next week so you can get off and running with your review. So with that, I'm going to jump into WiseHive very quick so you can see what you're going to be looking at. So let me share my screen here. There we go. Okay, so when you log into your WiseHive portfolio for the first time, you will see a list of programs that have been assigned to you. You'll see more than 2. As I mentioned, there'll be about 10 to 14. Do note, I think sometimes folks miss that there could be multiple pages, so please look at the end of your page to make sure that you might not be missing anything. And as you can see, if you have started a review, you can come back to it at any time. You don't need to finish it in one go. It will be there for you to be able to continue and work on throughout the month. Those that you have not started yet, you will see that they have that review piece there. So what you will do is you'll click on that. And essentially what you can do is you will see the application pulled up right here. So we start with that organizational financial review. This is just, again, a test agency, so things aren't 100% filled out, but you'll be able to look at that. And then you'll have your form attachments here. So agencies are required to submit that program level budget, an audit or board approved financial statement, a 990, a list of their current board of directors, and then anything else they might want to include. So it could be a evaluation about their program, or a video link to describe it more. So please do look at the form attachments to be able to get more of an explanation. But you'll see that financial review. We then get into a program level budget, and then application questions in general. So we look at where the organization is at in its nonprofit life cycle. We look at how they engage the voices of the population they serve. We ask them about their funding areas. And then we dive into the program. What needs are they addressing, describing the scope and the emphasis, and so on. So how you will score is you will see this feedback button up here that you will just click. Your very first question will be if you have a conflict of interest. Conflict of interest could be that you serve on the board or that you are currently working for that organization. So we just have you mark yes or no, and then you will go from here. So you'll see down the line, organization is financially sound, and then we ask you to score on a 0 to 8 scale. So again, you're able to add in questions or comments for the organization in here. We ask you to go throughout on this side to side. It will total up your score, and then you will hit submit. So again, if you don't finish the review, that's okay. Just hit save and draft, and you can come back to it at any time. But when you are ready to submit it to our team, you hit that submit button, and that will send it to us to be able to populate for your review meeting. So I will go ahead and log out of here and just jump back to the PowerPoint quickly. Here we go. Okay, so I briefly went over that rubric and scoring tool that you will see in your WiseHive profile. So just some notes when you're going over it. Don't try to fill in blanks for the organization. Go off of what you have when you're doing your scoring. Some questions may be one-to-one comparison, while others might be more of kind of like that vibe check. Use the full range of the rating scale. Could be 0 to 4 or 0 to 8, but don't hesitate and use it as a tool. There's a balance. So the conversation that you'll have after you score is a very important component of this as well. And just know that it's a broad scale. So you might have several very strong applications. You might have several very weak applications. Don't feel obligated to distribute your ratings across the range. Each application does need to be considered on its own merits. And to trust your instincts. It's really an art and a science here. There's no right or wrong answer. I think it's all about what, at the end of the day, the team feels comfortable with when it comes to investing in the community. So lastly, when you meet, you will receive kind of a sheet that looks like this, where we will have each of your agencies and programs listed on here with their request amount. Our financial team will do a financial risk assessment that will give that green, yellow, red, and we'll have their notes that we'll be able to share with you. We'll have your compiled team score, and then we'll kind of jump into those funding recommendations. So this last piece I want to leave you with is that the need and the requests are going to outpace what we have available to fund. So while we say it is okay to not fund a program, there will be programs that you review that you will not be funding. So I will just encourage you in your first meetings to really look at, kind of logically what makes sense for where these funding dollars go, and knowing that it will just not be possible to fund everyone, and that is okay. So we have the timeline kind of up here. We would really appreciate if you make sure that your profiles are good to go by the end of this weekend, so we can get you your programs assigned by early this next week. And then we will start with those team assignments and application review on the 1st. So we know that this is not an easy process and this is a tall task. So we just thank you all so much for being willing to do this with us. We are available, like I mentioned, for one-off meetings, or if you have questions after reviewing this session today. So we just thank you for your time and your willingness to participate, and walking through this process with us. I always like to, there's a little bit of a magic at the end of this that I'm sure that others that have participated would agree with. So we're thrilled to have you. We're going to go ahead and end the call for purposes of today. If you want to hang on and ask anything that you might have, Rosalind and I will hang out for a couple minutes, but otherwise I will end the recording. And don't hesitate to reach out if you'd like a copy of the recording or the PowerPoint at any point. So thank you.